everybody around the world. I'm LB Blue Dragon, and welcome back to another episode of Minecraft/Movie Talks. Now, last time that we left off, we were basically building our forever home, building, rebuilding, constructing, and doing all that stuff to build a wonderful forever home before we actually go on further into the game. Now, when we did some movie talk, we actually did talk about the Krooks and why the first one was way more better rather than the second one, of course. And how the second one just completely destroyed everything, to be frank. In my opinion, that is. So, what we are going to talk about today is that I'm actually going to have to take a break of talking about some DreamWorks because I realize that some of my talks are basically just nothing but DreamWorks talks, so I'm going to actually shift over to some Netflix movies that are actually original Netflix movies and stuff like that. So, the movie that we are going to talk about today is personally one of my favorites, to be frank, on the Netflix show. And the movie is called Sahara. Wait. That's not the Sahara. What is the Sahara? What is that? That is not the movie. Change it. Okay, there we go. I have no idea what was that about. I had no idea what that was. You know, when I was actually researching this, I actually literally have to type in Sarah Snake movie instead of just the actual word of Sahara because you get this on the search and not this. Okay. So, Sahara, the snake movie. Now, this movie has a bunch of ups and downs. Some people like it, some people don't. But in my personal opinion, I actually like it. I think it's one of those movies that I would just watch for fun and stuff. But overall, I like watching this movie. I've seen it a couple of times and I kind of like it, you know? And obviously, it was actually really good. This is a really good movie, not gonna lie. But I do have some opinions about it for the movie itself, but overall, it's a good movie. It's one of my favorite movies on Netflix, other than just a few other ones that I will probably be talking in the near future. So, with that being said, let's jump right into Sahara. Now, obviously, I will be talking about spoilers, so if you have not seen the movie, spoilers ahead, because I will be talking about this movie. Now, Sahara. This movie came out in February the 1st of 2017. This was actually a France movie. This came out in France, and obviously this was during the time when Netflix was very big with its inspiration of streaming networks and everything. So obviously this movie has been around since the beginning of the Netflix streaming, and the director is Pierre Cour. This movie had a box office of $8.1 million. And this movie has a 5.5 out of 10 ratings and 47 Rotten Tomatoes. Now, I know 47 on Rotten Tomatoes is bad, but obviously this was a very good movie. This was a very good movie that some people just mistreated, mistreat this movie, But the thing is that it was a pretty good movie. And I will be actually talking about this movie right now and give you guys a brief summary on this movie of what is it about and the ongoings of it as well. So spoilers ahead if you have not seen it. Okay, so this movie in particular is kind of a combination between Romeo and Juliet and Aladdin. And if you actually do watch it, you would get that feeling of Romeo, Juliet, and Aladdin. So this movie takes place in the desert, and you meet the two main characters, which is Ajar, which is a purple snake, and Pit, who is a scorpion. And they are trying to steal a watermelon. and they successfully stole the watermelon from some travelers that were actually traveling in the desert. And they successfully actually got the watermelon, but then unfortunately it's been snatched by some ruthless snakes. And these snakes actually live out in some kind of cavern where there's basically all kinds of different snakes, and obviously they don't actually like living in this cavern because they always get picked on and they always get bullied because they're just basically an outcast. But every snake is an outcast, but the snakes actually pick on Ajar and Pit because they are like weaklings. So Ajar had enough with other snakes and stuff and wanted to go into a jungle area, which is full of life and full of green and basically plenty of room for everyone. But unfortunately, the snakes cannot actually go into the jungle area because it is forbidden. Only green snakes are allowed in the green jungle area because that's where they live. Any other snakes that actually enters that area will be terminated or never actually go out. And while Ajar was actually admiring the green area, he actually saw a snake, which the snake is going to be our other character that we have on this journey, which is Eva. Eva is a green snake. She has been living in this green jungle for basically all of her life. She is actually sick and tired of living in this area, was just overwhelmed and just didn't want to actually live the rest of her life in this area. So she wanted to actually escape, and she actually been caught by one of the guards, and her father just basically forbids her to actually go out and reminds her that it is such a wonderful place here, but she just disagrees. Ajar had an idea to actually go into the jungle area. He decided to actually roll around in some green mud, disguising himself as a green snake, which honestly, I have never seen a green cobra before, which Ajar is a cobra, but if it works, it works. So he actually disguised himself as a green snake, and it actually works. And they were actually exploring the jungle area, admiring its beauty, and then all of a sudden, the guards, which are these cranes, saw a Dusty going about, and Pit thought it was them, so he actually panicked, and Ajar hits in the tall grass. And the reason why there's a sounding alarm is because Eva actually covered herself in some mud, brown mud, and disguised herself as a Dusty. Now, obviously, these two are not very good with disguises because they have done a terrible job trying to convince each other, oh yeah, I've been here before, I've lived here all my life. Or like, hey, I'm just passing by, and want to escape. So Ajar helps Eva actually escaped, and it turns out it led them into a river, which Eva replies that Ajar cannot swim. So Eva has to help Ajar escape. And while Eva was actually helping Ajar, they kind of have like a connection and they actually kissed underwater. But unfortunately, the water actually saw their true scales, Ajar being a Dusty and Eva being a green snake. They stumbled upon a branch at the end of the river and they had a little chat, revealing themselves who they are and why they were doing what they were doing. Eva explains that she wants to actually go out and explore, which is obviously something that's somewhat similar to Jasmine in a way, because Jasmine in Aladdin, she wanted to actually escape and want to actually go out on an adventure and explore the area. And Ajar, however, wants to actually live in the green place. But she says that it is a very terrible place because everybody is basically ruthless. With that being said, she actually wanted to go out. And the guards that were trying to catch the Dusty circled back and she thought that she was lost. So with the sense of a little bit of freedom, as soon as she actually gone out of the cavern, she has been captured by a couple of travelers, alongside with the snake charmer. Ajar was actually trying to save Eva, but unfortunately the crane actually got him and returned him to the base, where the green place is, the green jungle. And Eva is actually trapped into a basket with nowhere to escape. So Ajar is captured by the cranes alongside with Pit, and they were actually going to end his life. Unfortunately, everything stopped in the abyss because Gary was actually with the guards. Just somehow ended himself up with the guards, which Gary is going to be our other snake to come along too. He is actually Eva's brother. And with that, Ajar has an idea and decides to actually hold hostage of Gray and leaves the jungle area, gets away from the cranes. And with that, they're on their way to actually go and save Eva, which so happens that they accidentally stumble upon themselves in a cavern and got lost into a maze of rocks. During this time, it was just Pit, Ajar, and Gary. And with that, they were actually trying to know each other a little bit, but Gray was actually just this cool, little stubborn little snake, and they were just basically stuck with Gray. On the other side of the story, we cut to Eva, who meets these other snakes. And these other snakes are just basically just brainless. They don't know, like, anything of, like, oh, where were you and everything. Like, they were just basically minding their own business. And Eva actually stumbled upon a snake that is green, that his name is George. And George doesn't actually care about the situation or anything. He just only cares about himself. But there is a white snake, and she literally has some common sense. She wants to be the only snake to actually do, like, the performance for the snake charmer, which the snake charmer is basically the person that actually captures them and does performances with the flute, which this flute is actually very powerful. Because when Eva was trying to escape, she actually got pulled by the flute, and now she's in a trance and can never actually escape, even within the basket or by the snake charmer because of his flute. So basically, they were just all stuck in there. Cut to Ajar and Gary and Pit. They actually stumble upon a huge cave with these bugs. Now, I do want to actually say, I thought that these bugs in general was just like a little little bug that literally just does not exist at all. Just like something to like add into like the whole storyline. Because the thing is that Pit is a scorpion. And the thing about it is that he used his like sting to make people asleep, quote unquote. But the thing is that scorpions are very poisonous. They're very poisonous. So I don't know like the dynamic of that. So I actually did some research about these bugs, and they are actually real. They are called glowworms. And they literally live in caves, and they're carnivores. Which basically carnivores means that other animals kill other animals and stuff. And it's actually true. They're literally called glowworms. And you can like look it up. You can literally like look it up. Here's like a picture of the glowworms. And they're just literally like the midnight sky, but in a cave. Which is really, really cool in a sense. Which the glowworms did actually help them navigate to go to the right direction of where the cavalcade was actually going to. So the bugs actually did give them help on where the cavalcade was actually going towards, which is the Northern Star. But despite this, they were like, okay, so now that we get the information for you, we're gonna get you. And they were basically trying to end their lives, but Ajar actually freed them by showing light, and the glowworms basically panicked and scurried away because of the light. It really caught me off guard because in this movie, sometimes there are words and stuff that literally caught me off guard. Because the thing is that throughout this entire movie, sometimes you actually get to see hear Gary say, hey, who's Batman and who's Robin? To Pit or Ajar, which obviously that caught me so off guard. But what really caught me really off guard is when they first met the leader of the glowworms. He says, may the light be with you, which is a reference to Star Wars. Alright, so, of course, Ajar actually goes out and sees that there is the cavalcade's tracks and decides to actually go follow them. But Pit really has his doubts with Ajar because Ajar actually has feelings for Eva. But the snake, Gary, was like, "Are you insane? You're in love with my sister? You won't even have a chance. You're a dusty and you have not shed your skin," which this has been referenced throughout this entire movie. And this will actually be helpful later on in the movie. So, unfortunately, Gary is now actually stuck with Ajar and Pit because they're actually going to follow the cavalcade to save Eva throughout the desert. Which obviously we get like a little montage of Eva actually being trapped in the basket with the other snakes and being forced to actually do the dance moves that they are instructed to do for the snake charmer. And Gary, Pit, and Jar go and save them. And while Eva was actually doing some of the dances, she soon realized that these snakes has been stuck for a long time, like 50 years or 12 years to be exact. And Gary was actually trying to charm Eva, but unfortunately that was not working. So the white snake actually wanted to help Eva escape because she knows that the snake charmer will have to decide which one of us will stay and which one of us will go. So she actually tries to help Eva, but unfortunately the camels were not going to have that. So they were trying to actually capture Eva, and they actually successfully did. And with that, the snake charmer actually caught the white snake and Eva, and was about to actually put both of the snakes into another snake basket, which the snake charmer will actually use those snakes to actually make belts or accessories later on. But he actually decides to actually test their abilities and see which one is better than the other one. Now listen, if you tell me that snakes can never break down in a dance move, well, you're wrong, because literally this movie shows us that literally snakes can break it down. And with that, unfortunately, the white snake actually was defeated by Eva, and she successfully survived another day. And the white snake is now being put with the other snakes that will later on be accessories. So as days went by, Ajar, Pit, and Gray finally saw a traveling vehicle with some guests and decided to actually hop onto the car and actually drive to a nearby city or actually try to see the cavalcade. Now, the thing is that Gary likes flowers, and this has been hinted at for a very long time in the movie and actually got caught, and because of that, with the flowers in the vehicle, actually gets captured and actually gets thrown out of the window because of all Gray's fault, and Pitt actually got hurt, got himself unconscious, and now he's in the traveling vehicle. And Ajar was literally going to end Gary's life, but then he noticed it's not very much worth it or anything like that. So they decided to actually travel to go and find not only Eva, but also Pitt, because of their separation. The thing about Gary is that Gary is an outcast just like Ajar and Pitt. He doesn't actually say it or anything because he just plays it off cool or anything. But you can actually tell that Gary is not because you can actually see from Gary that he is somewhat similar to Ajar and Pitt, because Ajar and Pitt are basically outcast. And Gary is actually the same thing because he doesn't have any friends, no companions, or anything like that. So, in a way, they actually do get along with each other because they're both outcast. Even though they're basically two different snakes, but they're basically outcast no matter what they are. And with that, they literally have to work with each other to actually go and find Eva and Pitt. They stumble upon a lizard that actually would give them directions, and unfortunately, the lizard was not very helpful of giving them directions, and they somehow stumble upon a outing which has a big pond of water. And they decided to actually stay for the night until they actually move on to go and find Eva and Pitt. Which Pitt is actually with the travel people, and he actually stumbled upon some scorpions, and Pitt actually got along with the scorpions because it is his own kind, and they wanted to actually go with him. Like the scorpions actually offers Pitt to come with them, but unfortunately he declined. And he actually noticed that there was going to be a snake charmer in the city that the traveling people were actually going to be at. So he decided to actually tag along with them to go to the city. Now the thing is that Gary wanted to know why Pit was actually alone with Ajar, because Ajar is a snake and Pit is a scorpion. Pit's family is no longer alive because of a fight, and they don't actually know how Pit actually survived, and Pit actually stumbled upon Ajar one day and they became two best friends. The next day actually rolls around, Gary actually stumbled upon a whale that will lead to the city. And Ajar cannot swim because he's a cobra, but he has no choice because there's going to be a huge sandstorm coming in. So he had to jump into the well and actually go towards the city, which honestly does actually get drowned, but then resurface to a nearby fountain, which leads to a city. Now, the thing about it is that this city does actually involve the snake charmer, which they are actually going to check it out. Now, the thing is that Gary was actually so obsessive with flowers, but then he actually soon realized what's important here, flowers or my sister. So then he had to make the most hardest decision and actually chose his sister over flowers. And as soon as Ajar was actually saving Eva, George and Eva were actually talking. He was actually trying to comfort her in the way of a sense, and Ajar literally thought that they were actually together, and he was actually going to give up. But Gary actually gave Ajar courage to actually go and save his sister, and he actually does. And not only that, save the other snakes. With that, the snake charmer heard the noises and everything and wanted to grab his flute, grab all the snakes, and put them back into their proper place. Eva tells Ajar about the flute, and Ajar grabs the flute and goes off into the storm. And the charmer actually chases down Ajar and goes and chases down Ajar, which Ajar is literally flying into the air with the wind and everything, and the snake charmer is trying to track him down. They actually stumble upon a huge tower in the city, and Ajar and the snake master was trying to get the flute. It was basically a tug of war back and forth, and the flute snapped, and the charmer was very furious and wanted to end Ajar's life. The storm was very too strong with its wind and was trying to hold on to Ajar. And Ajar was actually basically trying to hold on tight with his life, and the snake charmer was pulling him very hard until his skin has shed, which was very, very painful, and the snake charmer disappeared. Eva and Gary finally caught up to Ajar after the storm, and they literally thought Ajar was actually done for. But Ajar actually survived and actually confesses his love to Eva with his very gorgeous scales. And they actually ended up being together. And with along that, the snake charmer was trying to end their lives, but Pit actually comes in and saves the day. And they all ended up together alongside with a girl scorpion from the scorpions that he met while he was stuck with the folks. So Eva and Ajar are actually together finally, and they ran off into the car with the traveling people, and they were actually going towards the oasis, which is going straight towards their home, which now Ajar and Eva are now actually a couple. Pit has a girlfriend, and not only that, the white snake is actually saved and decides to be in a relationship with Gary, and they ran off towards their home. And that was basically the summary of that. Now, I do want to say, sometimes there were certain situations in the movie where literally it didn't make sense, but you literally had to grab the information of what you have and go along with it. Sometimes the conversations lead from they're talking about this and then they're talking about that. It literally doesn't actually fall into place of the dialogue of what they're saying and everything. But not only that, when you are actually looking at the guards, which are the cranes, I don't even know why, but the thing is that when they are soaring, you can hear jet engines from an airplane, which I find that very hilarious, since they're just basically gliding. Which I don't know why they decide to do airplane jets, but okay. But like the thing is, a lot of people had complaints about certain things, and one of the certain things was that the snake's breathing. Now let me tell you something. In animation, there's like a lot of things that actually goes wrong, and some people can't put two and two together, or that they just basically forget. Which there are some movies that doesn't fall with snakes' actual breathing, and some that just really don't. How snakes actually breathe is that they literally breathe through their tongues. They grab the air and actually pull it back into their mouth so that they can breathe. But in Sahara, they actually don't do that, you know? But listen, let me tell you something. In most movies, they will actually get at least one or two things that are literally wrong. I mean, you can see so many movies on how they actually get the headphones so wrong on the bunnies. Like, the headphones are literally where their side heads are, but literally on where, like, their cheekbones are at, but literally their ears is on top. So, like, how are they listening to music when the headphones are, like, where their cheekbones is at, when literally their ears are on top? But overall, the story was great, the animation was flawless, and I really like the fact that the backgrounds, you can actually see it on some of the scenes, but like the background was like all like painted. It kind of had that painted feel towards it, and like the characters, alongside with the animals and the humans, fit so well with the background. Like, it really felt like it's like meant to be. Like, the characters and the background really fits well together. But there's like some like for some animations, like some of the backgrounds don't actually fit well with the characters. But in this movie, of a sense, it kind of felt like the characters actually do belong in this scenario, in this world. But overall, the scenery was actually very great. The story was very good. Now, the thing is, you only get to see this movie on Netflix. Now, the thing about it is, I actually stumbled upon an article stating that which is a sequel to the movie. And the movie was actually going to be called Sahara Slithering Light. This movie was actually going to be out somewhere in 2018 or 2019. And here was actually the plot for the movie. It's been 2 years since Ajar saved Eva, and his skin has finally shed. Peace has been great to him, but a threat by 2 snakes has entered the Faerie. Now Ajar, Eva, Pitt, Gray, Emily, and Petra has to survive with the help of a group of snakes, with one of them being Ajar's father, and stop the evil snakes. This plot was actually going to be very good. I was actually very intrigued about this, you know? Because this movie could actually, like, have, like, another sequel, like, or, like, a series towards it. Like, I feel like there could be, like, more that could be done with, like, this movie. But, unfortunately, it was not meant to be. Because it says here, after the success of the first film, a sequel was in development from 2019, but it was officially announced on the 3rd of March 28th. Now, the thing about it is, in 2019, Netflix was actually cutting off productions of movies that were actually coming out on Netflix, and was more focused on some of the other ones that were actually being good rather than the ones that were actually going to be out on Netflix. And I actually read a Reddit article of someone actually talking to the director themselves. He says, "Thank you very much for your compliments, which warms our hearts. I have passed on your enthusiasm to the team. Unfortunately, no sequel to come for Sahara. We were unable to raise funding." So, unfortunately, the sequel was not actually going to be made because they didn't have enough money to actually fund or actually make more of Sahara. But overall, this movie was actually really good to watch. Really, really good. The animation was flawless, with the snakes and the slithering alongside with some of the other animals as well. And I actually get to learn that glowworms actually exist, and they're like really cool. I thought it was just a made-up thing, but I was wrong. I was mistaken. They were actually cool. So yeah, pretty good movie to actually watch. Definitely recommend it. So let me know your thoughts on Sahara. Do you think you like it, or do you not like it? Let me know in the comments below. And with that being said, I'm sorry to say this, but I'm probably going to have to end it here, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. Please go check out on some of my other videos that I made, or some of the other movie talks that I made on this channel, or even check out some of my streamings as well. And please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you're new. And I hope you guys have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you are in this world. Hope you guys have a wonderful day, and I will see y'all later. Bye!